Faith. This is exciting to have you on, and I'm
Thank
glad that we
you.
do not have a blizzard raging on in the background. We had to do a reschedule for that, and I loved our little sort of chit chat up front. But I do want to jump in where I usually jump in with most of my guests, and that's to sort of find out where they came from and what makes them tick. And you have a very unusual background. You're not a doctor, you're not a engineer, but you're a futurist. So I'd like to dig into when did you know you wanted to be a futurist, and then let's talk a little bit about how you got there.
Well, it's an, you know, when I look at people and say, like, where are they coming from? And why did they do what they do? That's what you're asking here. I became a futurist for a really weird reason. Beside being very good at seeing what's coming, and I'll explain why originally, I really don't like being yelled at. And I thought, who could yell at somebody that tells you what's going to happen? I was wrong about that, though. They do say, like, that can't be, form of yelling, and I don't think I've ever predicted anything that was broadly accepted, only in the rearview mirror. Oh my God, had we listened. So I think that's one thing. And I think I was kind of good at reading the big room, the environment. And that's because, my family was very like noisy, violent, crazy, really crazy. And like as a kid, you could almost feel the air in the room change. So I think I became I'm hyper aware. I drive people crazy. Like I'll come in and see a plug's unplugged or a phone's not charged or, just hyper. And when you're hyper aware, I believe everybody has this ability, by the way, but they don't use it. A part of the brain that really sees what's coming. And I don't see what's coming from the past and extrapolating. If this is happening now, that's going to happen then. I see what's coming from the far future. So I can read the far future pretty easily, and I think most people can.
Mm-hmm.
And then I backcast to now, and then I watch how fast or slow it's going. And that's how we make predictions. And we've been 95% correct, which I wrote 4 books just to do benchmarking, really, predominantly. But we predicted cocooning in 1982. People would be staying home. I had the pleasure of speaking to a large audience once at P&G. Like the CEO invited me, and I said, don't worry about Walmart because everything's going to be home delivered. And literally they laughed. And I think I was a little early, but only last week, Amazon exceeded Walmart in
Wow,
sales.
that's crazy.
Just last week, though. Took them a minute. But yeah.
Which is interesting, by the way, because they're doing this crazy push right now with Walter Goggins as their spokesperson. Walmart is to be everything home delivery, and it's like probably should have figured that out in like 15 or 20 years ago when
Yeah,
this company called Amazon was doing it, but
I
they
know.
snuck up on people.
Yes. So, um, yeah, people are not going to want to go to the supermarket. It's dangerous, it's dirty, and it uses gas, and nobody has any childcare. And we can get into the birth rate and the divorce rate. Nobody's going to have kids. I mean, not nobody, but very few. And people aren't getting married. So we could talk about that. That's a whole separate thing, but that's another reason supermarkets are not going to make it.
Well, it makes me sad, but I can definitely see all of the things that you're talking about. And I guess because you brought it up, one of the questions we did have was cocooning. And it's interesting because I didn't realize in doing my research that you had talked about it so far ago, because obviously the pandemic taught us about this idea of cocooning, the impulse to stay inside and insulate oneself from the harsh outside world. So, in an era of remote work and digital immersion, is our cocoon now a launch pad for personal growth? Or has it become a barrier to the community connections we need to excel? Because that is the risk, right? It's good to be safe for, all the reasons that you just said, not having to go and spend the time, the gas, et cetera. But you do start to miss out on some of those community connections that, at least for people like me, help me thrive.
I love your question. Um, we did a big assignment for like a enormous cable company, and it was like 6 months before, COVID came. And we did a whole like panorama of the future, and we said, you can be the lifeline for education, safety, you said self-improvement, business, it's not just a dumb pipe into the house. And I said, people are going to be staying home more and they're going to need this, and you can own this. And they said, that is so apocalyptic. We don't, that happens to me a lot. They do pay us a lot, but then they don't agree with us based on nothing. And it's a little frustrating. They said it's too apocalyptic, don't no, give us something softer, so we can scrub a deck, we can make it softer, sure. And then 6 months later, COVID hit. And they called us and they said, where's that deck? And they implemented a lot of the things, at least that happened, that we recommended. So yeah, that happened like when we worked with Kodak, same. What's the future of film? There won't be film. There's going to be digital. No, we're a film company. What's the future of food? Well, people are talking now, like I got a lot of resistance like 4 or 5 years ago. I talked to the head of like Walmart. I go, that basket's going to get smaller. He says, why? I said, because Ozempic Mounjaro, people are not going to be eating that much. He said, that's for a select few. Nobody's going to give themselves a shot. I said, completely wrong. This is the goal of certainly female and some men, to be thinner. And anyway, they're going to come out with a pill. And anyway, insurance is going to cover it because it also fights diabetes and heart disease and everything. So your grocery list is going to get a lot smaller. And he said, and no, it's not. And yes, it did. But I don't mean to be complaining. I could go on all day. Maybe I'm become like not a great salesman of the future because
No, I think
buying it.
Faith, yeah, it brings up an interesting conundrum, right? Because of the fact that people want to be told sort of what they want to hear, and your job is to tell them what's coming, and those two probably diverge fairly often. And it's interesting. We had a woman named Amy Webb. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
her.
I know her.
Also
She's
a
great.
futurist. And she talked about you can be the most brilliant person and have the best predictions, but if you don't know how to frame it and couch it and deliver that news, then it doesn't matter, right? And so I hadn't thought about this aspect of people, like especially companies, not really wanting to hear what you have to say sometimes, especially if it does feel apocalyptic. So I do appreciate you sharing that. I have another trend that I want to dig into, and this actually, for me personally, I really want to know the answer to this. There's several of these questions that I personally want to know the answer to.
Good.
So you speak about 99 lives, this frantic pace of multitasking to get everything done. So for our listeners that are trying to reach higher without burning out, how can we transition from simply surviving these lives to mastering a more intentional, singular focus?
Well, I don't know about mastering a singular focus anymore because life is so many things going on at the same time. But I think it's about, and we should talk a lot about this, getting more comfortable with AI instead of fighting it. Another thing that we're fighting, saying it's not going to happen, by the way, that happened already. But maybe create agents that can do some of this work so that you can be doing 5 things at once.
Mm-hmm.
But people are so resistive, I think, to AI. They don't know how to use it. They want to reject it. They don't believe in it. I have a lot of thoughts about AI when we get to it. That is the biggest mistake you could make.
Well, I like that. And it's interesting because I've started to use AI to help in a number of facets with the podcast. I'm a marketer, by trade originally, and it's also helpful in that regard. I do find that it does require good inputs, and it does require the human eye to finish it off. So I used AI to help me with some of the questions. Some I thought were really good. Some I'm like, you totally missed the mark. But part of why that's helpful is you've done such a great job at putting these predictions and all this amazing sort of content out into the world that allows for the AI to do that, and then me to use my human brain and know enough about you to be dangerous to go in and then overlay that and move them around and sort of make sure that we have a logical flow. So I love that that's where you ended up. And I also tend to agree that it's impossible to have a singular focus. I mean, there are people that do that. I commend them, but that's not me. I feel like I'm probably at a minimum 8 or 10 different people, depending on the setting
Well,
that I'm in.
that's good. I mean, I think that's a survival necessity, actually.
It is. It is. Well, speaking of survival, one of the other things that you talk about, and I really loved this, and I've thought a lot about it given we won't get political, but the tribal world that we live in today. So the vigilante consumer. And so people using their purchasing power to demand higher ethical standards. Because I think, we've seen it in Florida before when they've done things and musical artists have boycotted. It's those things a lot of times that can sort of evoke that change. So, how can entrepreneurs and professionals align their personal brands with this trend to create businesses that aren't just profitable, but higher in their moral and social impact? Costco being one that I think has done a tremendous job over
They've
the
done a
last
great
year.
job. I take my prediction back on I don't consider them a supermarket particularly.
No,
They're,
no, not at all.
yeah, no, they've done a great job. Well, here's something that's worrisome is that while we're doing like B2C, business to consumer, right?
Hmm.
It's not going to be like that. It's going to be B to A, business to agents. Your agent will, knowing you well, knowing your ethical standards, knowing what you've invested in, knowing everything about you, is actually going to do the shopping and show you like this company, like I have in my last one of my reports about trouble. You pick up the can of peas and it bings and goes like child labor, underpaid females, bad board of directors, Epstein now, whatever. You put the peas back. But it's even going to be more developed than that, where your ethical standards will line up with particular companies and products. And no, but I don't think that these companies is big. I mean, I'm worried about the Fortune 200.
Hmm.
I wrote about this in my report on trouble, seeing that these companies are constructed only to see something big, but they can't see the beginnings of something. And signals from the future are usually like light and small, and they just can't pick them up. So they go one way. I mean, I guess that's the primary reason people hire us. You know, the the idea that and actually the most common question I'm asked, one of the common questions when I speak, I do a lot of speaking, is like, what's the difference between a fad and a trend? I mean, first of all, I think trends are over. Fads are over too. A fad is an exemplary action off a movement.
Hmm.
So people are trying to break out. Maybe they show it in what they wear, or that's the fad part of it. But the big message is wanting to be a different kind of snowflake. So I guess that's what I'm thinking. Like the bots are going to make a lot of the decisions for you and do a lot of the legwork and a lot of the thinking.
Well, so first of all, that's fascinating. As someone, again, I mentioned marketing. You've always thought about the B2B, the B2C, or the B to B2C sometimes, especially
B
in the
to
healthcare
A.
world. But the B to A, love where you're going on that one, and I'm going to give that some thought. I do, because you brought it up, want to talk a little bit about this future of trouble. And so there is this trend of Fortune 500 leaders being blind to the signs and deaf to the signals. You just sort of touched on that. And you are what you consider, I think, a corporate troublemaker, but in a good
Mhm.
way, even though people don't always want to hear it.
Mhm.
So, how can people like yourself, how do troublemakers like yourself become the CEO's best friend? Like, how do you? We just talked about that with Amy Webb. How do you get them to listen to you and hear you and understand that you're not doing this to be a pain in the ass? You're doing this because it's your job, and if they listen to you, you've been right 95% of the time. Brain reserve your company. Like, how do you get them to pay attention to that?
Where I differ from Amy is about this framing thing. I've tried that.
Hmm.
Frame it so gently that they don't see the problem as they should. And I believe that you have to, while we're still H to H, and that's human to human,
Hmm.
engender trust with the people that make the decisions. And I've done my best work when I was closer to the people that really could pull the trigger or not pull the trigger. So an example is when we worked at Campbell's Soup with Doug Conant, one of the best CEOs on the planet, by the way. We told him, like, let's go back to good, which was the original, like, DNA of the company.
Yep. Yep.
And what would being a goodness company be like? Well, you'd have better ingredients, they'd be good. You'd have soup kitchens across the country. You treat your people very well. You'd be the goodness company. And if I wasn't as close to him as I was, I don't think that could have ever gotten a chance of execution anywhere else. So I think people, or especially, CEOs, I think that when they look at me, and I know so many of them, sometimes I know their parents, they trust me. And once somebody trusts you, they can listen better. They could disagree with you still. I love you, I trust you, I don't agree, or I love you, I trust you, but I can't get this past the board. Okay. But it takes down that shield rather than cushion the information. We do truth to power. We always do it.
Mm.
And sometimes we've gotten a hard pushback doing truth to power, but I mean, I can't do anything else but that.
I love how prescriptive that is, because I think we do live in a day where trust has been eroded. There's so much disinformation and misinformation out there. I love that human to human. My friend Brian Kramer, I don't know if you know him, wrote a book called Human to Human.
No,
And
I
so
don't.
I think he did it maybe 10 years ago, but lovely person, he and his wife Courtney. But I think one, you said, it's being that authentic and not afraid to speak truth to power. And I think that is part of building the trust, right? So I
Yeah.
love that that's the suggestion. I do want to talk about something that's coming soon, and this is how you and I got introduced, although I had heard of you before. So you have a very cool panel at South by Southwest, which is an innovation festival in Austin, Texas, music, film, and then digital, now AI, probably a lot. And it's called Two Futurists and an AI Seeing Trouble Ahead. I kind of wanted the two futurists and an AI walk into a bar, but I think that's the implication.
It is.
So I love the fact that you've got this AI concept. So tell us more about the panel and a little bit about the unusual panelist that's joining you and Sarah Devanzo on stage.
So Sarah Devanzo is a very good friend of mine, and she's a really brilliant futurist, and she works at Porter Novelli now.
Mm-hmm.
I've always told her, like, be a free agent, but I don't know. She likes working in a company. I don't get it, but okay. So we do things together anyway. And, this idea of this panel. So I'm the one that says AI will take over, and we could talk more about that. She's the one that thinks about human intervention. And the bot, we actually don't know what the bot's going to say.
Oh, I love that.
And we really don't know. We know a few things, but not the whole, because it really responds in real time to what we're saying. And you can't rehearse it really. So, I mean, I think I know what Sarah's going to say. I hope I know what I'm going to say, but the bot is going to go for survival of the bot, I believe. And what's it called? Molt Book. You know Molt Book?
Mhm.
So this is my evidence for the present anyway. Molt Book is a place where bots and agents get together, no humans allowed, and they talk and they converse and they get answers from each other. They've had some issues because I forgot, they had an issue because somebody, one of the bots jumped into another one, or they had some, cross signal thing. But I do believe that bots are going to get together and say, I prescribe this for it's like your Uber nanny. I told this my owner or partner, what will it be?
Yeah, that's an interesting
Yeah,
question.
try this. And then another one goes, but that's not the best thing. And they have these conversations we can watch. I think Molt Book is definitely, even if it doesn't work this time, a prediction of the future. No humans needed. So on our panel, South by Southwest, it's going to be Friday morning, 10 o'clock. We're going to have just a nice little, argument with each other and this bot. And I think it's like a force that's coming where we're going to be advised by bots, have conversation. We already know bots are what? Companions. It was front page New York Times. That's not new or trendy anymore, right? When it hits
Mm-mm.
about this woman who had a bot companion, she's feeling a lot better. And these bot companions, they know, do you know that shortly bots or agents will, well, they already passed the bar exam. They can be a doctor and a lawyer and a psychologist and a psychiatrist and a worker or whatever at the same time. So when you have a, local bot talking to you or advising you, I mean, they know actually much more than you do. And humans are finding comfort in this. And I advise you not to find comfort in this. Oh, well, bots only like reflect the past, right? Well, what do you think human thinking is? Most of it. It's like
Mhm.
experience. That's called experience when you're human, but when you're a bot, it's not called experience. So I don't get that. I think that the bots are going to uh, take over. I'm waiting for and it may exist without us knowing. First CEO bot
Mm.
does a better job.
Can I ask you a question? Have you seen the show Pluribus by any chance?
Tell me what it's about again.
So it's actually strangely similar to what you're talking about. And so the premise, and I'm not spoiling anything,
Yeah,
is
it's
that
okay.
essentially there's this signal that they discover from outer space. And it turns out this signal is a recipe to create a substance that takes over humans' bodies and then allows everyone that has this sort of signal or that they
Yes,
all sort of have this groupthink. And what made me think about it is two things.
there are a couple of
First, that
outliers, right? Outliers,
there are I think about a dozen outliers. This is
right?
probably a little bit of a spoiler alert, so
An
sorry everyone.
outlier.
I'll let people know in the notes that this is the
Okay.
spoiler. But what's interesting is they do share a brain or share a consciousness. So exactly what you're saying, they have all of the expertise and all of the knowledge in the world, and there is a thesis that Vince Gilligan, who's done Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and others, he is very anti AI. So this is his sort of message to the world: say, beware, folks. This is coming, and if this is what happens. And they seem benign at times, but also you can see where they're taking things, and it's very similar to what you're talking about. So that's kind of like one of those out of body experiences to hear you talk about it this way.
Have you seen Begonia?
Yes, I absolutely loved it. Did you like it?
Loved it. Loved it.
Didn't
Oh,
see the ending coming. We won't spoil that for people, but
I
holy
didn't
cow.
see, and I usually am good at this. I did not see that ending coming in. It's really divine. Well, just like, I mean, do you think that, like, I wouldn't be that, how they're saying, um, like people have spotted like ships from other places and the reason I believe in that is probably some of the most normal people are pilots.
Hmm.
I love pilots. They're just normal. I mean, they know they have to take off, land a plane. They're in charge of a lot of people's, welfare. Um, they're they're good engineers. When pilots report that they see these things, it means more to me than if a whole like cabinet told me they saw it. So, like, I think there's a lot that we don't know, and we think I don't want to sound too weird. I am somewhat weird, but I don't want to sound too weird. But, you know, if this is true, can a bot communicate better than we can? Will there be a third? It's a triangle. B to A, bot to agent, human, human to agent, let's say agent to human, back and forth. But is the third thing of this triangle, the third point, uh, getting information from somewhere else or
You kind of
observe?
just you kind of just blew my mind, Faith. That I do believe in, alien or life outside of Earth. I think it's very egocentric if we don't. And I never had thought about that pilot idea. And I do agree with you. We trust our lives with them on the regular,
Yeah.
and they are sort of, steady eddies. Um, yeah, well, that is
Or will
mind
they be
bending.
able to communicate better? Because, being human won't stand in their way. So maybe there's a formula that we're missing because, we're resistant to not being the special snowflake, and
Mm,
an agent doesn't have that.
right.
They just want like information learned. So maybe there's a way, and to go to Mars, like Elon wants to go to Mars. And I mean, this guy's smart, right? But he hasn't really faced this. He's faced it. He doesn't talk about it. I'm sure he's faced it. You can't send a human to Mars unless you can put them to sleep for a long time in stasis where they don't grow older. It takes too long. So there has to be some manipulation of speed, or we send bots to what do you call it, colonize
Mm.
another planet. They could make it possibly more easily, certainly. And then we say, are these bots sentient? A guy, I forget his name. I think I would love him if I met him. He got fired from Google because he said these things are sentient. And then I've listened to a lot of Harari, is that his name? Like saying, what is sentient? I mean, he's pretty open on this, like just because they don't have bodies. I mean, they could easily have bodies. So I don't know if they're sentient in the way we think. Maybe they're sentient in a more advanced way. They're certainly more objective.
Mm.
That's why I think there's a CEO bot coming. And there should be a bot on every board of directors to bring them into, like, bring them down to real life and real problems.
Yeah, I mean I love that idea. The CEO one is a little bit freaking me out, but I could see it coming. I like them being on the board. I'm actually going to maybe start to think. I'm on a few boards. I'm sure you're on a number of them, and that
I
is
find boards boring. Nobody wants me on a board. I just make trouble.
well, you do this for a living, right? And I can see why. Although I could listen to you talk for hours.
Thank
I do
you.
want to go back to something that you've identified the world's fastest growing economy as a gender, right? And specifically highlighting the great power switch where women are recoding everything. And as someone that is a huge advocate ally, especially after this whole Olympic, hockey team and the drama there,
Isn't that amazing? And Trump goes, "Oh, they're going to come to the White House,"
yeah,
I
no,
mean, after they boycotted, but this is female. If this didn't prove, you're right. This gives me a great piece of evidence. When women boycott Lysistrata, right? Old
hmm
tale about, changing men by not having sex with them, but what is that? It's like BC, it
hmm
started. But women can change a culture,
yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
they just opted out. So they're going to inherit by 2030, what is it, 140 trillion dollars. The only people that don't know how rich they are them. Women are very like, oh, could I have that much money? What should I do? They're not used to being, I guess, they affluent or not. They love to be in groups. They're much more collegial, much more friendly, actually.
Well, it's interesting to that point. You probably know this, but Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, and I'm blanking on her name. I wish I could remember it.
Melissa, what's her name? Well, I'll tell you her name in a minute.
Okay. And I could look it up as well. But she is on the record as giving away more money this year alone to charitable causes as Bill Gates, all of the super famous or wealthy gentlemen. And it reinforces your point, right? Which is there is this, I don't need it. I'm going to give it away. I'm going to sort of help the world. And they do it at a pace that we're just going to see more and more of, especially if they're inheriting, the billions of dollars or trillions of dollars worth of wealth.
Let's pause for a minute. Name. Mackenzie Scott.
Mackenzie Scott. Thank you for looking that up. Kathleen, who's our superstar
Kathleen,
in the background. Thank you, Kathleen.
Mackenzie Scott, like you said, is giving away more money. That's why I'm saying that when your bot is going to have a female POV and go shopping for you, it's not going to buy from companies that are in opposition to your beliefs, your ethics, your everything. And, and what about Melinda Gates? Melinda Gates, right?
Melinda Gates, yeah, also doing the same
giving
thing.
away money. So I'm awfully glad that these women got divorced. Otherwise, maybe we wouldn't have benefited so much.
Yeah, who would have known? It's funny, by the way, just a little plug for me. I have a book that's
Geez.
coming out ideally around South by Southwest called Wired for Purpose. And the very topic is essentially adding the humanity back into the equation. I grew up in the world of digital and, sort of thrived in it early days, but I
Right.
think there is that element of humanity and we're touching on that. And the femaleness does help bring that humanity to bear. And I'm a big believer that, I am really excited about a female president of the United States. I am a big believer in, I love this idea of the bot and maybe being programmed with that female leaning sensibility of really having the intuition and the EQ and the compassion that I think the world could probably use a little bit more of, or a lot more of.
Well, I'm really excited to read your book, Aaron. I'm sure it's going to be fab. Anything I can do. But here's the other thing. I think it's 65% of young men haven't had a date by the time they're 30. The marriage rate is crashing globally. China, it's the lowest rate since I think 1960 something. China, and then Europe crashing, and US,
Hmm.
So all these companies that still think like it's mommy and daddy and kids, they're crazy. I mean, it's different family, we call it family reformation, hanging out with your friends or going on a cruise with your friends or like the shopping cart, like Costco, sharing with your friends because who can eat that many cans of beans or whatever. They're not understanding that there's two kids to every pot. It's not happening. It's below the rate of replacement.
Hmm.
And yet we're marketing like it's 1960. Still.
Yeah, no, for
Still.
sure. Again, good food for thought. I do have one more sort of serious question, and then we have some sort of lighter questions.
Yes, I
Well,
love the light
three
one.
lighter.
Yep.
This is fascinating, though. Literally, I could talk to you forever. We have to create a faith popcorn bot so that I could just sort of ask you
I'm
questions all
trying to
day. And
do that, Aaron. Seriously, I'm trying to
well,
build
let's
that
figure it
bot.
out. Let's figure it out.
Okay. Do you think you could help me?
I could help you. I don't have the knowledge, but I know the people that can help you. So
Okay.
let's talk more about that offline.
Okay.
Yeah. Last question is through your consultancy, which we mentioned earlier, Brain Reserve, 95% success rate. You work behind the scenes with major corporations to improve environmental sustainability, educational efforts, and diversity initiatives. We've talked a little bit about this, but I love this. You mentioned the Campbell Soup example. So, can you share more about this important work, and how do we get you helping more companies and getting them to listen to you? Because, as I mentioned earlier, we live in this tribal society, and I think a lot of people are afraid to do the right thing. They might want to do the right thing. They're afraid to do the right thing. But how do we, let's talk more about that.
Well, do you think you can scare people into action?
I mean, you can sometimes, but I think the carrot works a lot better than the stick does. But you
I
have to
don't
use both of them sometimes.
I don't know what carrot to give them. What I'm saying is if they don't pay attention to do the right thing, even if the human is not smart enough or has the time enough to reject them, reject their products and services, the agent will. And the bot will. They have a lot more time. They do things a lot faster. And go, no, don't buy this. You see, I always did it in a almost analog way. Like I remember we worked for American Airlines once, and like I was sitting in the front, and I heard these we call them stewardesses then, attendants,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I love to talk to people that work on the line, my favorite, and they're really upset. Their hours, they're this, they're that, and they were like, ugh. So I talked to the CEO. I go, you're going to have a strike on your hands. And you know what he said? No, we're not. And yes, they did. So that's what I was looking at trouble, like, forever. When I want to find out really what's going on, I go to the cafeteria of a company and ask the people that serve behind the glass thing or whatever. Like we were working for a phone company, right? And I went down to the cafeteria and I said, you're not going to get in trouble or anything. Like mainly Hispanic workers, right? Show me your phone. It was not the company's phone. Now that's bad. That means you haven't even convinced your employees to use your product. And you're not looking at that? Why, they're not important because they're Hispanic and they're behind the counter? That's crazy. I mean, it's just like not having Spanish translation on packaging. I mean, I mean, now it's better, but um, yeah, no. You know, no. It's really very easy to see when the consumer is pulling back if you want to. You should never eat in the executive dining room. That should be a sin.
You've said two really sort of profound things. The first of which is it is this agentic takeover, and especially if it's more female led, is going to change the way people have to build and deliver and do things. And then the second is it's really kind of an age old thing. Early days of my work, I worked at a company that focused on online communities, and the whole concept was the wisdom of crowds, right? And so it's been proven over and over again exactly what you're saying. It's these predictive markets that if you listen in non-obvious places, and actually what you're talking about are more obvious, talking to the flight attendants, talking to the people at work, and listening to them, they do have this sort of innate sense of what's going on, and their behavior is reflecting the true nature of, like you said, if they don't own the phones of the company that they belong to, that's really telling. And so I would say anyone listening to this, if you don't take away anything else, listen to those very sort of important pieces
It's,
of advice right there.
well, and it's easy, but here's the thing. Even when I reported this, they go, it ended up being their whole strategy, marketing to the underserved. It was
Hmm.
the strategy that we ended up with. But when I first said it was like, well, I don't know. They don't want contracts or they don't. I go, then don't give them contracts. They're enormous. I remember talking to the largest meat producer, I guess you'd say, in the
Right.
world, saying vegetarianism is coming. Why? Not for that nice environmental reason, which you really should, because cows, like, the gases in the grass and take up too much room. And cows are adorable, by the way, but because of the cruelty in the processing. And it was almost like, are you really going to tell me this? I mean, like, if you're going to talk like this, should talk like this. Like I said, the F word. If you're going to talk like this, should we really be working together? Then this guy noticed that the person I put on, this wasn't brilliant of me, on the work was a vegetarian. Like he noticed that she wasn't eating like the beef and the chicken. But he came back recently and they did buy some companies that were veggie. So it takes a minute, you know? He asked his whole team, which was, I think, like immediate team, like 150 people, to raise their hand or stand up if they believed in what Faith Popcorn was saying. I had gotten to them before, though, and I had talked to each one of them. Say, do you believe what we're saying? Will you stand up for us? And I didn't know he was going to do that, but he did that after he thanked Jesus Christ for bringing me. And then I said, John, I'm Jewish. And he said, that's okay. I said, okay that I'm Jewish, but not so okay that, I was headed toward not eating meat.
Well, that's a great story to end the first part of our interview, and we'll shift into some quick
Okay.
questions, and we'll wrap up because I know we're running short on time. But I do like to ask all of my guests that is there a show or podcast, and I'm particularly interested in your answer to this. We've already talked about a movie, we've talked about a podcast, but anything that you're binging right now or that's really got your interest.
So I have three, which I
Perfect.
adore. I am so addicted to them. One is Love Luxury. And it's this woman, her name is Maria. Look her up on Love Luxury. It's Marya, I think. And she wears a headscarf and everything. And
Hmm.
here's the deal. When you go to Hermes, you have to spend a lot of money to be able to get a Birkin, right?
Right.
And they also now look up your address. You have to be in the right name. So
Oh,
really,
I didn't know that.
yes.
Wow, that's another
But when
layer.
they offer you a Birkin, you better not say no, and it may not be the color you want. So you buy your
Hmm.
Birkin, and then you go to Love Luxury and sell it. Brilliant. They have
Hmm.
one in Dubai and one in London. And this woman is incredible. she knows every Birkin, every color, every year, everything, and then she talks to them how much were you expecting, and or like a kid will come in like with the dad to buy for the mother. It's just, and I was trying to say, how can I apply this to like Starbucks? Like it's so intriguing. Starbucks, like like I want them to be like Love Luxury. I want them to be talking to the person. One of the things we were saying is put the coffee maker like in the front to talk and let a robot make the coffee, because the
Mhm.
engagement. Okay, Love Luxury. Here's another one. It's called Swiss Watch dot but spelled out swisswatch.com, and it's this guy named Rafi Juma. His family has a company, a big jewelry company called Icebox. They make all this stuff for the rappers, but
Mhm.
he has this store, and it's fantastic. These guys come, like a guy comes in, they blur them. Not Love Luxury, you can see who they are. And some people think it's fake, but I don't think it's fake. I think they're real people. So this guy, they blur them because they come in, they're drunk, they're high, they're angry, they're insulting him. Did you eat beans for lunch? Like really insulting. And they bring their gold chains and their watches, and he's really cool. And he's small, but I'm sure he's got incredible security around him because it goes like, if you're going to talk like this to me, sometimes they touch him, or he says, do not touch, only talk, and he's so cool, and he weighs the gold and everything and says what year the watch is from and negotiates. He's a brilliant negotiator because they go on 50,000. He goes, but this watch is worth 12,000. They end up somewhere. And then he goes like 20,000. And then he brings out stacks of $1,000 bills, right? And gives it to the guy. And the guy goes like, addicted to this. We're going to try to figure out why. Then there's a third one called The Godmother of Diamonds. Her name is Carrie Lavine, Lavine. Carrie is like New Yorker accent, and you bring her your diamond and she goes like, "Oh my God, I hate to tell you, but this is fake." Or, "Oh my God, you have to go get a certificate from the Gem Association. This is the most gorgeous stone." Blah blah blah. What do you think it's worth? They say, and actually, Juma does that too. What do you think the watch is worth? So the person will go like, "I know the good diamond is worth like 150,000," and then they test it and everything, 377,000, and she's big and she wears this stupid what sweatshirts, and she's like so believable and so delicious that people send her their jewelry. I hope they insure it. And same with Love Luxury. You can send them a bag or I would buy a bag without even going in there from her because her reputation for authenticity is brilliant. There are a lot of fake Hermes out there, a lot of fake Rolexes too. I'm asking you, Aaron, reverse, what do these three podcasts or relationships have in common? What is it? Is it trust?
Well, I think it's trust. It's a deep understanding of their product. And it's probably
Yeah.
a deep understanding of the people. And by the way, Emily Abraham, I think, is the woman you're talking about that was
They own
on the
it, the
Love Luxury.
Abrahams, but the woman that sells is named
Oh,
Mayra.
Myra, yes. So I saw Emily first. I'm scrolling through my phone
Emily, and
here.
what's his name?
His
Abraham?
name is Adam Abraham.
Adam
So
Abraham, and his
yeah.
wife is
So Emily, Adam, and
Myra.
Myra, Marya. If that's Myra, that
Maria.
sounds right. Yeah,
Maria.
Maria. Yeah.
Maria is the star of the show. She, like a person comes in and goes like, I just broke up with my boyfriend and he bought me this bag, and every time I look at it, I think of him and I don't want it anymore. Or my wife bought this bag on my credit card, it's $188,000, and she can she'll resell all these bags. It's really that Hermes didn't do this is really dumb.
I
Hermes
agree.
should have had a second, what do you call it, marketplace. I guess maybe
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
couldn't because it would have compromised their exclusivity. I don't know, but here are three podcasts, right? Or whatever they are, online sales things, stores. There's so much trust there. And so, oh, here's what I think I'm going to write my next bulletin about it if I can get my head together. The value of personality. There's no personality anymore. Like everything is so like bland and so boring. The CMOs and the CEOs and everybody in like it's so far from the age of Mad Men and I think these three have a lot of personality. June is so fabulous.
Well, it sounds like it. I'm going to recommend it to my wife because she loves all those things, and
Raffi
I'm going to
Bluma.
check them out. Yeah,
Yes, you're gonna love it.
and
So,
we'll put those in the show notes as well, so people can reference them.
and maybe you should interview them.
I think you gave me some great ideas, so I
Yeah.
am always happy to do that. Um, we've talked a little bit about some of the great people that you've met in your life and advised, et cetera. But out of all the amazing people you've met, who has impressed you the most?
Well, Colin Powell uh not only impressed me but influenced me.
Mm.
I went to Colin Powell. We were on the same speaking platform, so days of like big conventions, and he was on, I was on. Then I went to him after. I go, "Are you going to run for president? I want you to run for president." Early days. And he said, "You run for president." I go, "I don't want to be the president. You run for president." I said, he said, "No." He said, "I'm going to tell you what I think you should do." I go, "Please." He said, "Save one person, save a life." Now, this is really weird because in the end, I felt that the life I saved me, but I adopted a Chinese daughter who was like 9 months old. I was like that t-shirt, "Oops, I forgot to have a baby." And I adopted one, and then she wanted a sister. And she didn't buy this idea that she was my boutique baby. I go, "You're my boutique baby. You can't have a sister. Come on." I want a sister. You have a sister. Got her a sister. So now I have her name Georgica, Gigi. We call Georgica George after my father, and Cece, Clara Cecil after my mother, Cece and Gigi. So I think he influenced me, and it's also the thing you're going to ask: do I regret not being able to have more? You know, more kids. I think kids are just amazing. And nobody can afford them. Nobody wants to have them anymore because they think they're bringing them to a crappy world. But let me tell you, if you want to know crappy worlds, be a girl in China.
Yeah,
So, that was a beautiful thing he helped me with.
that's amazing. I've had some really good answers to that. That is like I am sitting here sort of awestruck by that, and I love
Well,
that you worked in the biggest regret into that as well. And then that leaves us with one more question, which is, which band or artist, ideally one that we can no longer see, would you like to have most seen?
I love Amy Winehouse.
Oh,
I love Janis Joplin, and I did meet her at Max's Kansas City. She used to come in there so high, so drunk, she could hardly like stand. And I love Doris Day. And she was a great animal lover too. Love Audrey Hepburn.
our
But
daughter, our youngest, is named after Audrey Hepburn.
really?
Yeah,
Audrey?
Audrey. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones.
Well, those are spectacular. And I was just listening to Amy Winehouse the other day, and I never got into her as much as I could have when she was more popular. And now I regret that I didn't. And I also regret that I never got to see her because I've seen a lot of bands. But those are great choices. And I love the fact that you met Janis Joplin. That's
Well,
amazing.
she and Janis Joplin had a lot in common. They always had a
They,
drink next to them.
hmm they did. Well, but also taking that further, they had that very soulful, somewhat troubled and sort of problematic. You could hear it in their voice, and you could obviously hear it in their lyrics. So,
But you know who
um,
I love right now who's still alive? Who is, I think, brilliant, is this singer. She's a jazz singer named Ray.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love her. She's got a
She's
big
great.
future. She doesn't let someone rip her off. Amy Winehouse's father like screwed her up, Janis Joplin, everybody screwed her up. I hope Ray is watching her money better. She's brilliant. Ray is brilliant. She's like the incarnation of like Chris Connor, old jazz singer.
Yeah. Well, Ray, if you're listening, you just got maybe the best endorsement you ever could because this woman, I've been told, knows some things about the future and who's going to sort of be successful down the road. Well, with that, Faith, thank you so much for
My
taking the
pleasure.
time. This has been, I've interviewed a lot of really fun, cool, smart people, and
Thank you.
this is top of the list because you just have such an interesting way of framing things and looking at things. So thank you for making the time today. And we didn't
Yeah.
mention this before. Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th is when the South
Right.
by Southwest session is. It is going to be recorded, I believe.
Yes, it's gonna be on
Okay.
at 10 o'clock in the morning. If anybody does, has a small hangover and doesn't come, I don't know. Whatever.
So we'll make sure we link to that as well. So I would definitely
Okay.
encourage people to check
Aaron,
that out.
you
So
are just divine, and I'm looking forward to reading your book. How'd you get the book published? That's getting hard these days.
I went the self-publishing route because I went with Wiley when I did one of the Dummies books a million years ago.
Yeah.
And so this go around, I thought, you know what? I want to control the narrative. I'm the one that's going to market it anyway. So I
Right.
might as well, own all the rights to it. And I've worked with this wonderful gentleman named John Wibben. And it's really been sort of like a great experience. And, I would highly recommend it to anyone that's interested.
Well, I'm interested, and I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to tell everybody about it.
Well, thank you. I will definitely make sure you get a copy.